Welcome back to Dr. Doug's Daily Tips for Writing Great LDS Church Music. Today we are looking at hymn 103, Precious Savior, Dear Redeemer. This one we're going to look at the very end. So scrolling down, this final cadence, the final ending of the song, of the hymn, has a really nice chord here. I've put up some Roman numeral analysis, but I want to dig into this a little bit. Something I'm always looking for, and this is the whole point here, is to give you a tip from a hymn that's already in use in our tradition, and pick out a little composer lesson from it so that you can use it in your own arrangements or primary songs or whatever it is. Something that I'm always working to do is to find fresh new ways to end phrases. There's the traditional ways to end phrases with cadences like 5-1 or 4-1, the plagal cadence. They're pretty traditional and they work, but I'm always looking for a little different flavor. How can I change this ending slightly so that it's a little bit more unique, a little bit more special? And usually it has something to do with the story of the hymn or the story of the song, so that it kind of feeds the emotion of what I want the song or hymn to say. Okay, so a very common type of ending is what we have here, which is the 5-7 chord going to the 1 chord. Now this piece of music is in the key of E flat major, so the 5-7 chord is a B flat 7 chord. That looks like a 6, sorry. B flat 7 chord, and it goes to an E flat major chord at the end. Okay, very, very traditional, very common 5-7-1. We heard that 100 million times. Okay, but before the 5-7, we get a special chord. We get da-da-da in the tenor. Now, this is a very similar little chromatic move from the B on in to A natural on the to A flat on and to G on abide that we saw a few days ago in these tips. I believe it was hymn 100, where the soprano did this kind of half-step motion. Well, now the tenors, speaking as a tenor, get this fun half-step motion all the way from B flat down to G, and it makes something special of this last little phrase. I'll play from May Each Soul. Da, 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 da. Okay, so because that happened, we have a chromatic note in there. We have this A natural, which doesn't fit the key that we're in. And on that particular chord, if you take that chord and you make a snowman out of it, which is another way to call it a triad or a seventh, stacked thirds like we normally see chords, what we get is A natural is the root, C is the third of the chord, E flat is the fifth of the chord, and do we have a seventh? No, we do not have a seventh. Sometimes you get a seventh, which would be G in this case, but there's no seventh here. So A natural, C, E flat. That's a diminished chord. But because of the A natural, it doesn't fit in the key of E flat. So what we have to do is we have to make sense of how this chord fits. What does it relate to? And what we do is we look in other keys that are closely related to the key we're in. Now, A natural, well, here's what we look for. In this case, often when we have naturals like this, they're acting as what we call a leading tone. A leading tone is the 7th scale degree. So in E flat major, the leading tone is D, and then it goes up to E flat. Well, that chord, if you build a chord on the leading tone, so leading tone chords are diminished. If you build a triad on the leading tone, it's diminished. Okay, so what's happening with this one is we're building a chord, a diminished chord, on a note that doesn't fit the key we're in. But if we look at that note, A natural, and we ask ourselves, what is A natural the leading tone to? In other words, if A natural is the 7th scale degree, what's the 1st scale degree? Well, 7th scale degrees are only a half step away from 1st scale degrees. So if A natural is the 7th scale degree, then the 1st scale degree is B flat. And B flat is a very important note in the key of E flat. It's the 5th scale degree, which the 5 chord is based on. Aha! So now we found the relationship. A diminished chord built on the leading tone of B flat, which happens to be the 5 chord in this key. So what we have is we have a 7 diminished chord of B flat, which is the 5. 7 diminished of 5, and the little 6 means it's in first inversion. That goes to 5/7 and then to 1. So that chord, diminished, 7 diminished 6 of 5 to 5/7 to 1, allows you to have that chromatic passing through the tenor, and it heightens the arrival at the 5 chord because we used the leading tone chord of the 5 chord. Isn't that fun? So this is what we call secondary leading tone chords. And if you want to know more about those, you can check out the Chromatic Voice Leading Workshop and other things that I'm doing over at latterdaymusiversity.com and the harmony classes that we have. But it's a fun little way to heighten the arrival of the cadence, because we have to arrive, well, we usually arrive at a 5 chord before the final 1 chord, but what if we arrived at the 5 chord in a special way? And that's what happens here. We prepare the 5 chord with its own leading tone chord, the 7 of B flat. In other words, the 7 diminished of 5. Okay? So there's a little sneak peek into the world of chromatic harmony with secondary chords, where we're basically borrowing from the key of B flat for a quick minute and then going right back to the key of E flat to heighten the cadence. All right, hope you enjoyed that. If you'd like more tips like this, head over to latterdaymusiversity.com. You can get a free 24-page report called The 10 Commandments of LDS Warm Fuzzy Music. In other words, how to write music in a way that gives people the warm fuzzies. These are some of my most important principles of how to do that, my 10 commandments of how to do that. Okay? Head over to latterdaymusiversity.com to get that for free, and come back tomorrow where we will look at Hymn 104. See you then.